On the day of my coming-of-age ceremony, heavy snow fell. That same day, I received the Crown Prince's letter of annulment and a marriage contract sent by his uncle. Seated in the grand hall, my heart felt as cold as ashes. Just moments ago, Xia Fan knelt before the assembled officials, declaring with certainty that he already had a beloved and wished to dissolve our engagement. My father's face turned ashen. The emperor's countenance darkened. How dare anyone defy a marriage decreed by the Son of Heaven? As tensions reached a breaking point, one man alone fanned himself with nonchalance, chuckling, "Your Majesty, this humble subject finds the Xing family's daughter exceptionally graceful. The more I look upon her, the more I delight in her." Every gaze in the hall turned toward him. I looked up in bewilderment, meeting Xia Zhao's eyes, those alluring, almond-shaped eyes, smiling at me. Xia Zhao, titled Ning, the sole younger brother of the current sovereign and the only prince of the dynasty. He shared a deep bond with the emperor and acted entirely on his whims. Possessing striking, vibrant features, he sat upon the dais in his crimson robes. Though it was the depths of winter, he radiated like a blazing fire. The emperor's expression softened momentarily at his words, then hardened again as he snapped, "What nonsense are you spouting at a time like this?" Xia Zhao replied, "Your Majesty, the Crown Prince's deep affection and resolute refusal to proceed with the marriage deeply moved me." He made a gesture of heartfelt sighing, then raised an eyebrow with amusement before shifting his tone. "But I find the young lady of the Xing family rather pitiful now that her betrothal is broken. Coincidentally, my household is in need of a principal consort. Why not bestow her upon me? Thus, we would accomplish two beautiful unions." The emperor roared, "Marriage is no trivial matter. How dare you treat it as a game?" Xia Zhao counted on his fingers, "Miss Xing's courtesy name is Ning, and my title is Ning. I see a profound karmic connection between us, one we must not miss. Brother, grant me this favor." His eyes narrowed, a mischievous smile deepening in their corners. I was dumbfounded. Glancing around, everyone else seemed equally stunned. Only Xia Zhao stared at me with unrestrained boldness, his nonchalant expression like he was begging for a charming toy. It was truly a strange turn of events. Before entering the palace that morning, I was the Crown Prince's betrothed. By evening, upon returning home, I had become the betrothed of a prince. The emperor initially found it absurd, but after weighing his options, he realized it was the best solution. First, the Crown Prince had publicly broken off our engagement, a profound humiliation. Though my father wasn't particularly fond of me, enduring such disgrace would surely enrage him, leaving the emperor no choice but to appease him. Moreover, arranging my marriage after the annulment presented a formidable challenge. Regardless of whether anyone dared take on the Crown Prince's messy legacy, as the legitimate daughter of the Chancellor's household, marrying me would leave the emperor uneasy. With Xia Zhao stepping in, I would still marry into the imperial family, and even hold a relatively high status. Miraculously, the emperor agreed. He immediately issued an edict granting Xia Zhao and me imperial permission to marry, setting a date for the wedding. Kneeling to receive the decree, I was overwhelmed by the emperor's grace, feeling utterly bewildered. Throughout the entire process, the emperor never once gave the Crown Prince a favorable look, punishing him by ordering him back to his quarters for reflection. Xia Zhao departed with an air of leisure. Passing by Xia Fan, he tapped his fan against the boy's head with a soft tap. "Your taste is lacking, nephew." I couldn't help but chuckle. Then, the thought struck me, the Crown Prince would soon have to address me as his aunt. A subtle sense of pride suddenly welled up within me. I am the legitimate daughter of the Chancellor's household. My parents were also married by imperial decree, always harmonious and respectful toward each other. But her health was poor. After giving birth to me, she was greatly weakened. Several years passed without her bearing any more children, and she gradually fell into disfavor. Not long after, my father promptly brought a concubine into the household. Madame Xue proved fertile, adding a son and daughter the following year. The Chancellor was overjoyed, showering them with affection. This stark contrast only made my mother's courtyard seem more desolate and bleak. After that, the concubine grew increasingly arrogant, coveting my mother's position as the legitimate wife. It was infuriating that my father indulged her, seemingly intent on replacing his wife with his concubine. My mother and I could find no peace. As I grew older, my mother entered her twilight years. Concerned that her gentle nature would leave me vulnerable after her passing, she petitioned the emperor for an imperial decree. The emperor's golden words promised me the future position of crown princess. With this status, even if I remained deeply unloved, I could still live comfortably in the chancellor's mansion. I knelt before my mother's sickbed to receive the decree. As she passed, she clasped my hand and left me with her final words. Her voice was weak, yet her tone was calm and clear. Ninger, men may have affection but not true heart. The word love is but an illusion. The only one you can rely on is yourself. And barely an hour after my mother passed, Madame Shui leaned against the doorway, gazing at my tear-stained eyes. Her smile was coy and triumphant. Ah, it seems my trouble brewing those potions was not in vain. A chill instantly gripped my entire body. Seeing my sanity teetering on the brink, she giggled even more gleefully. I didn't like her living so long. I pulled my expression back, bit by bit. I studied her face for a long time before finally offering a gentle smile. "Thank you for your trouble," I said. That deep winter was exceptionally bitter. Clad in mourning robes, I stood in the desolate snowstorm, realizing I had only myself to rely on now. Come spring, the youngest and most pampered son of the chancellor's household, Xingxia, stumbled and tumbled into the pond. The spring chill was still sharp, the thin ice not yet melted. The pond was deep, and by the time they pulled the delicate child out, he was barely breathing. I went to visit, leaning lazily against the frantic Schwescher's ear and murmuring with a soft laugh, "Well now, it seems my trouble in damaging those steps wasn't in vain." Her eyes snapped up, filled with shock and fury. I replied casually, "I never liked him living to see the height of summer." After that accident, Xingxia fell into a feverish delirium and remained bedridden. True to my words, he did not live to see midsummer. Madame Shui came to find me, her eyes red with tears, vowing to strip me of everything in the future. I merely smiled faintly. Returning from the palace this time, I overheard gossip about the woman the crown prince was so desperate to marry that he'd even break off his engagement, apparently my half-sister, the illegitimate Xingjiao. Schwescher, oh Schwescher, you never imagined I'd have such luck. Losing the crown prince, yet gaining a prince. Thinking of this, I couldn't help but sneer at myself. Whether I marry a dog or a chicken in the future, it makes no difference to me. This birthday celebration was nothing but a chaotic mess. Suddenly, a sharp tap echoed from the windowsill. I leapt up, drawing the dagger hidden beneath my pillow. Its cold gleam flashed as I demanded in a chilling voice, "Who's there?" The window creaked open. A figure in crimson leapt in, light and silent. Snow-white fingers raised, beckoning me to hush. I stared, dumbfounded. Prince Ning, climbing a woman's window in the dead of night? Even in romance novels, a man meeting a woman at midnight is called an affair. And affairs demand perfect timing, location, and circumstances. This fellow clearly disregarded all conventions, who would boldly wear red attire, as if desperate for attention. I am, after all, a maiden of good reputation. My honor matters, you know. Xia Zhao landed lightly, even taking the time to smooth his slightly rumpled robe before closing the window. Noticing my panic, he reassured me, "Rest assured, no one saw me." His eyes, dark as ink, met the sharp, gleaming blade in my hand. His expression hardened instantly. "Are you calling this prince a dog or a chicken?" His voice was cool and magnetic, like a breeze caressing a fine zither. His almond-shaped eyes were strikingly beautiful, their radiance shifting in the dim night as if a painted figure had come to life. My mind wandered for a moment, finding his focus utterly inappropriate. I exclaimed in disbelief, "You came to see me just to say that?" He replied, "Not exactly. I came to discuss marital affection." I froze. Recalling Xia Zhao's notorious reputation for womanizing throughout the capital, a surge of irritation and embarrassment shot through my brain, setting my face ablaze. I blurted out, "Your Highness, please behave yourself. We are not yet wed. Whatever needs discussing can wait until after the wedding." Xia Zhao paused. His luminous eyes blinked several times, revealing a rare hint of surprise. But within seconds, he couldn't hold back a silent laugh, nearly doubling over. I stared at him, utterly bewildered. Suppressing his amusement, Xia Zhao drew a meticulously wrapped jade box from his robe. Opening it revealed a jade hairpin inlaid with emeralds and precious stones, exquisitely crafted. Even in the dim night, it shimmered with a faint, luminous glow. Xia Zhao teased, "I heard today is the princess consort's birthday, so I specially chose this gift to disturb you." Little did I know the princess consort would ask me to restrain myself. He then made a gesture as if to retrieve the hairpin. I froze completely, my face flushing crimson. Instinctively, I dropped the knife and lunged forward to snatch the box. Leveraging his height advantage, Xia Zhao effortlessly raised the jade box above his head, blocking my reach. He continued to tease, "Who would have thought the princess consort was so eager for marriage? Your husband humbly obeys your command, we'll discuss matters properly after the wedding." I was furious. "Xia Zhao." "Miss?" My maid Mingxin's hesitant voice suddenly came from outside the door. "Is something wrong? I heard noise from your room." Xia Zhao spread his arms wide, about to speak. I instantly fell silent, clamping my hand over his mouth. Fumbling frantically, I shoved him aside, took several deep breaths, and called out, "Nothing." Glaring fiercely at the man crouched by the table corner, I declared, "A rat just ran in, but I chased it away. I'm going to sleep." Mingxin fell silent, presumably leaving. Xia Zhao mouthed, "Did you call me a chicken, a dog, or a rat?" "Calm now," I mouthed back, "A duck." Xia Zhao. Calling Prince Ning a duck was just a momentary outburst. My heart sank. I suddenly realized I'd been too playful with him, letting myself get carried away without noticing. Xia Zhao didn't seem to mind, even teasing me, so the princess is quite sharp-tongued, huh? I pursed my lips and glared at him, saying nothing. He took out the hairpin, held it up to my hair, and satisfied, put it away. The wind stirred by his robe accidentally extinguished the candle. Rubbing my temples, I couldn't be bothered to relight it. "Never mind," I said. "I'll rest early. You should go." In the darkness, I couldn't make out Xia Zhao's expression. He ruffled my hair. "Happy birthday." Then he climbed out the window, his movements unusually light and silent. I stood there holding the hairpin, dumbfounded. After a long while, I stomped my feet in frustration. The mansion was already bustling with preparations for my marriage. Though Xia Zhao was known for his romantic escapades, the Prince Ning's residence remained refreshingly uncluttered, not a single concubine in sight. The emperor had indeed considered an arranged marriage before, but Xia Zhao had deflected it with some nonsense like, "If your majesty insists on bestowing a match, it would be quicker to simply replace the signboard of Magpie Bridge Pavilion with one for the Prince Ning's residence." Magpie Bridge Pavilion, after all, was the capital's most renowned brothel. The emperor, powerless against his most favored younger brother, miraculously allowed the capital's most sought-after prince, the darling of the marriage market, to remain unmarried and carefree. I am the first wife he has formally married into his household. Two events, neither minor nor major, occurred during this time. First, Xingjiao came to visit me once. She was indeed betrothed to the crown prince and carried herself with the air of a future crown princess. Given what happened that summer, she clearly hated me to the bone. I couldn't fathom what she was up to. Second, I lost my hairpin. I searched for days before reluctantly admitting it was truly gone. Everything else proceeded smoothly. Yet, an unexpected turn of events struck on my wedding day. The wedding day. From dawn, I prepared my face and adorned myself, surrounded by the vibrant red of celebration. Veiled, I rode in the 8-bearer palanquin. The wedding maid sang all the way, the 10-mile procession of red bridal finery stretching to the prince's mansion. It was truly a scene of joyous song and laughter, magnificent in scale. All the way to the prince's mansion. After the ceremony and being escorted into the bridal chamber, I became Xia Zhao's wife. We stood close together, and I caught the faint, clean scent of his skin. Dressed in his wedding robes, he stood tall and graceful. When I left the mansion earlier, I'd caught a glimpse of the young groom, dazzling and radiant, like a blazing fire. It always made me recall the day of my coming-of-age ceremony. Outside, snow swirled fiercely, yet he stood there in his crimson robes, his presence overwhelming. As if sensing my thoughts, he gently stroked my knuckles. The eunuch drew out his words, "First, bow to heaven and earth, he took my hand, intending to kneel with me. Suddenly, chaos erupted. "You cannot bow." A shrill scream pierced the air, freezing the festive atmosphere. Startled and furious, I looked up. From the high dais, the emperor roared, "Insolence!" A woman, her voice unfamiliar, kneeled without servility, banging her forehead several times on the ground. She declared loudly, "He cannot marry her. This woman has been unfaithful." These earth-shattering words sent a wave of commotion through the crowd. Then, in an instant, deathly silence fell. Without even looking, I could feel every pair of eyes, filled with shock, scrutiny, and gossip, fixed on me. Little did they know, I was more stunned than anyone. I must admit, this servant chose her moment to slander me perfectly. With my face still veiled, bound by imperial protocol, I couldn't even defend myself. Unable to move, I sat in silence for a long moment, then sighed. This servant must have lost her mind to publicly expose such a disgraceful affair. Regardless of truth or falsehood, bringing shame upon the imperial family, how could she possibly live on? The atmosphere grew unbearably heavy. If I hadn't misread the situation, a single glance from the emperor would have sent nearly all the onlookers scurrying away with their tails between their legs. Xie Zhao held my hand, gently stroking my fingertips. Though blind, I miraculously sensed his surging anger, like ripples breaking the surface of still water. Xie Zhao helped me rise slowly, his voice calm. "Do you know the punishment for slandering the princess consort?" The woman paused for a second, her voice tightening. "Your Majesty, with 10,000 dares, this servant would never dare to lie." Her words echoed through the vast hall. "This servant is Li Ying, the stewardess of the Chancellor's residence. The evidence of the princess consort's affair with a man is irrefutable. On the 9th day of the 12th month, this humble servant personally witnessed a man climb through the window into Shining's chambers and spend the night there." I was bewildered. Wasn't that my birthday? The man she mentioned. Could it be Xie Zhao? But how could they have spent the entire night? Another faint, trembling voice piped up, "This servant. This servant can also testify." I felt as if struck by lightning. It was Mingxin. That explained the loss of the hairpin. She said, "Your servant passed by the young lady's door that night." Inside, there were indeed sounds of a man. Immediately after, the lamps were extinguished. Very early. "Mingxin, you have such a way with words. Your servant also has physical evidence." Li Ying produced something and presented it, murmuring something low and indistinct. After a long silence, I heard the emperor's cold snort. My muddled mind suddenly cleared. What she presented must be the hairpin Xie Zhao gave me. Every treasure bestowed upon the household, every piece of jewelry purchased, is meticulously recorded. The stewardess need only check the ledgers to confirm this hairpin appeared out of thin air. I had dismissed its disappearance as mere carelessness, never suspecting it would be exploited by someone with ulterior motives. The mastermind's goal was to smear me with this filth. Because on that day, I was still an unmarried maiden. The fact that a man climbed through my window to find me was undeniable. The cruelty lay in the fact that no matter who I met, I could never prove my innocence. Even though I was betrothed to Xie Zhao, in the rigidly formal court of the Celestial Empire, a woman meeting a man privately at night was a capital offense deserving of a stake through the spine. And I was to marry into the imperial family, I could not afford even the slightest misstep. Cold sweat poured down my back. Amidst the chaos, a sweet, high-pitched gasp cut in seamlessly, "How could you be so foolish, sister?" That single cry sealed my guilt beyond doubt. "Xingjiao, you have a way with words." The emperor roared in fury, "Xingning." I stood frozen, releasing Xie Zhao's hand. Explanations were useless, for that night, Xie Zhao had indeed entered my chambers. I was about to kneel. Xie Zhao suddenly clasped my hand. He yanked me up, yet gently shielded me behind him. His voice was ice-cold. "Why won't you believe I'll protect you?" His grip was painfully tight. Through the crimson brocade veil, I looked up blankly toward Xie Zhao. Had I not been veiled, I would have seen my young husband, my handsome bridegroom, consumed by a raging fire of fury. His aura was thick with malevolence, his eyes and brows betraying an unmistakable, unhidden ferocity. Xia Zhao said coldly, my imperial brother may punish me after I have finished speaking. Without pause, he continued, just now, Xing Jiao took the blame for her sister with remarkable candor. I admire your familial devotion. A wave of warmth washed over me, nearly making me laugh, yet it stung my eyes with tears. I lowered my gaze, peering through the narrow gap in the thick veil, watching his beautiful fingers grip mine with unyielding resolve. I imagined Xing Jiao's expression must have been priceless. He spoke again, his tone unexpectedly gentle. Mingxin, do you know who the man in the room that day was? Mingxin banged her head against the floor, her voice trembling out of tune. This servant doesn't know. Xia Zhao gave a strange smile. The princess called my name that night. You were listening outside. How could you not know? Mingxin's head banging grew louder, a muffled thud that sounded like she might be bleeding. She couldn't utter a single word. I stood calmly. Li Ying trembled. That she dared speak at all, I admired her courage. She shrieked, even if you are the prince, you cannot meet with the young lady privately in the middle of the night. Xia Zhao said lightly, Li Ying, you judge this prince guilty of adultery based on a hairpin and a pair of eyes. He chuckled softly. Yet when this prince visited that day, I entered through the main gate of the chancellor's residence. It's recorded in black and white in the visitor log, verify it if you wish. He snapped his fingers. Instantly, someone trotted in, presenting something. My eyes widened in the crimson gloom. Moments later, I heard a thud as a forehead struck the floor, followed by low, trembling breaths that betrayed utter terror. Xia Zhao spoke gently, I brought my guards to deliver birthday gifts to my beloved consort. It took but the time to drink a cup of tea. To avoid disturbing the chancellor, we skipped the formal announcement. It was done openly and honestly, how could it be called an affair? His voice turned grave. It seems you're quite adept at framing others with such righteous indignation. The sound of heads striking the floor echoed repeatedly. I had finally grasped the crux of the matter. What a masterful bait-and-switch, now I understood why he had climbed through my window. Recalling the incident, even the extinguished candle had been deliberate. Such a simple trick had been enough to plant the seed of suspicion, condemning me as an adulteress. The mastermind, intent on my death, never imagined checking the entry logs. Xia Zhao said coldly, earlier, this prince asked, do you know the punishment for slandering the prince's consort? How dare you slander the royal family's integrity? Where does that leave my consort's reputation? Where does it leave the dignity of our royal house? Where does it leave the laws and customs of our heavenly dynasty? Your Imperial Majesty. The emperor finally caught on, his voice icy as he took over. Attendants. Drag them away. Make sure they're well attended to. Find out who orchestrated this, don't sully the prince's eyes. Amidst the cacophony of wails and sobs, I trembled slightly. Xia Zhao, superficially a man of charm, leisure, and mischief, disinterested in governance, drunk on pleasure. The truth might be precisely the opposite. In today's farce, he had even calculated me into his scheme. You are already the most revered prince of this dynasty, yet you scheme so meticulously, advancing step by step. Whom does the blade point toward? I watched his hand clasp mine, and suddenly, a chill ran through my entire body. The next moment, Xia Zhao raised his voice in fury once more, the princess is quick to anger. She's ruined the wedding. She's died of grief. What am I to do? I gasped for air, choking violently. Xia Zhao slid his hand down my back, whispering in my ear with lazy, unrestrained abandon. My dear, no need to rush. The auspicious hour remains. Your husband remembers his vows well. After the wedding, we shall surely cultivate our affection. I know you've coveted me for so long. Today, I'll make your dreams come true. I was utterly dumbfounded. For a moment, I began to doubt whether my own thoughts had been correct. How could this man be so shameless? After the ceremony concluded and we were escorted to the bridal chamber, Xia Zhao remained outside to receive guests and offer toasts, while I sat alone on the bed, finally allowing myself to breathe a slow sigh of relief. Later, the emperor asked Xia Zhao, with measured tone, why he had climbed through the window. Xia Zhao, having lost all semblance of propriety, pondered for a long moment before solemnly declaring, for the fun of it. Emperor. Me. Fine. Suddenly, the door creaked open slowly. Back already? My heart tightened. I stiffened unnaturally, waiting for Xia Zhao to lift my veil. Unexpectedly, before he made a move, I caught the sweet, rich scent of pastries. Exhausted after a long day and having had nothing to eat, my stomach promptly responded with several loud growls. Xia Zhao laughed without restraint. In the early days of budding romance, I too had fantasized about the enchanting night of our wedding, a night of intimate union and whispered sweet nothings. After my mother passed, I lost all illusions about marriage, yet I still hoped for a relationship built on mutual respect. But I never imagined, on our wedding night, my husband stood before me and said, "Want some? Beg me. I'll be driven to my grave by this man." Suppressing my rage, Prince Ning. I can lift my own veil. Xia Zhao knew when to stop, muttering, "You really can't take a joke," before deftly lifting my veil. Light flooded back into my eyes. I opened them to see Xia Zhao dressed in brilliant red, a faint smile playing on his lips. His face, as fair as snow and as delicate as a flower, glowed vividly in the flickering candlelight, clearly in high spirits. He remained in the posture of lifting my veil, leaning close to gaze at me for several seconds before drawing a slight breath. As if coming to his senses, he murmured, "Clouds evoke thoughts of robes, flowers stir thoughts of beauty." I hadn't caught it clearly and asked doubtfully, "What did you say?" Xia Zhao tapped my head with his finger. "What's with all the what's this, what's that? Eat quickly. Weren't you starving just now?" He clicked his tongue. "You always call me Prince Ning when you're upset." "I don't like that." I looked at him in disbelief. "Then what do you want me to call you?" Xia Zhao pondered. "Nothing too sappy. Just call me darling." My hand trembled, and a piece of dragon beard candy fell straight to the floor. After a moment of chaos, I could finally eat my pastries in peace. Watching me eat, Xia Zhao suddenly asked, "Is there anything you want to ask me?" There was. I said, "This rose pastry is delicious. Could you have the chef come and make it for me every day?" Xia Zhao choked on his water. Today's wedding banquet was graced by the emperor's favor, personally hosted by him. These pastries were likely made by the imperial chefs. After a moment, he replied in a tone that was neither here nor there, "As long as your husband doesn't lose his head, I can bring you any chef in the realm." I studied him for a while, realizing he was serious. Slowly, I finished the rose pastry and said, "I am already your wife. If you lose your head, I will lose mine too." I cleared my throat. "Your scheming all this time has been for the crown prince, from Xia Fan breaking off the engagement to the crown princess designate Xingjiao attacking me today, it's all you're doing. With Xingjiao's failure today, the emperor will blame you, and the chancellor will surely be overwhelmed." "And my father?" "He's a staunch supporter of the crown prince." Xia Zhao replied casually, "Actually, it's for the princess consort. Removing those she dislikes is my duty as her husband." I shot him a glare and continued, "Whenever Xia Fan makes a mistake, you seize the opportunity. His Majesty has few heirs. Counting them all, fewer than 3 possess the capability to contend for the throne. Should the crown prince fall, you—" I stopped myself, leaving the implication unspoken. Truthfully, another doubt lingered in my heart, but I suppressed it. The path you walk is one where the victor writes history. I boarded this ship of thieves. I follow your lead, merely protecting myself. To put it simply, I know what you intend to do, and I won't stand in your way. Whomever you choose to target with your blade, you need not hold back. But if you get into trouble, I won't be there to bail you out." I couldn't fathom why we had to discuss these matters on our wedding night. Xia Zhao raised an eyebrow, seeming quite pleased with what he heard. The next moment, he pulled me forcefully onto his lap. Caught off guard, I let out a small gasp. The red paper window paper cut into the character double happiness cast our overlapping shadows. The faint, clean, cool fragrance from his body gently enveloped me. Inside the room, dragon and phoenix wedding candles stood side by side, burning brightly. The brocade quilt was embroidered with mandarin ducks playing in water, a sea of festive crimson. Xia Zhao chuckled softly in my ear, his warm breath tickling me so I wanted to escape. My face flushed belatedly. The man before me was my husband. He spoke slowly. This prince is quite curious to hear how the princess intends to protect herself. I have no way, I replied. Twisting in his embrace, I traced my fingers up his neck. Then I'll simply slit your throat before anyone else can, present your head in homage, and atone for my crime through service. In this moment of passion, I found myself unexpectedly composed. My mother's words still rang in my ears. Men may feel affection, yet their hearts remain distant. The word love is but an illusion. If that moment truly came, I believe I would do it. I was not joking. Xie Zhao stood utterly defenseless, exposing his most vulnerable throat, allowing my fingertips to trace its contours. He murmured, "Could you bear to?" His Adam's apple rolled beneath my fingers. I nodded. I could. Xie Zhao's voice was hoarse. I never imagined I'd raised such a ruthless, ungrateful wolf. He seized my hands and pinned them above my head, his gaze dangerous and unrestrained, like a tyrant blinded by beauty. He bit down hard on my lips. This prince grants your wish. A night of tender warmth. The next morning, I woke up with aching muscles and a sore back. Recalling how I'd been forced to call him darling last night, and not just once, I felt utterly mortified. Xie Zhao was still fast asleep. I nudged him. Get up. We have court to attend today. He rolled over, pulling me into his embrace. No. Sleep. I struggled to rise. The emperor will be displeased. Xie Zhao pulled me deeper into his embrace, impatiently retorting, "Let him go to hell." Poor me nearly fainted from fright, then slept until late morning. On our wedding day, Xie Zhao cancelled the morning audience, staying with me all day. He granted me free reign within the prince's mansion, especially emphasizing I could do as I pleased with Prince Ning. I angrily chased him out of the room. But the window wasn't sealed tight, and he climbed right back in. On the second day of our marriage, Xie Zhao took me out for a spring outing, insisting I witness his horsemanship. He practically hoisted me onto his horse. He galloped through the bustling market on his light steed, while I clung to his waist, too terrified to even scream. Suspecting it was revenge, I banished him from the room once more. This time, having learned my lesson, I sealed the windows and locked the doors. He simply asked the steward for a key and strolled out the front gate. On the third day of our marriage, Xie Zhao took me to the market. I'd never seen such a bustling scene before and bought a cartload of goods. Xie Zhao called me a spendthrift all night, so I packed my things and moved to the guest quarters. He followed me, clinging stubbornly, and whispered in my ear, "So this is the kind of bedroom fun my wife enjoys." Raised as the legitimate daughter, I was brought up under the strictest rules, never stepping beyond the inner courtyard, never crossing the second gate. Yet in the capital, it was often said that Prince Ning lived a life of unrestrained debauchery, never giving a thought to propriety. I didn't believe it. The wedding rituals were incredibly tedious, yet he never showed the slightest impatience. But I couldn't help but believe it. Because barely a fortnight after I entered his household, he'd already taken me out to play for half a month. Didn't that make me seem rather loose too? I must also admit that his arrival shattered the stagnant pond of my existence. Ripples spread across the tranquil surface. Only then did I grasp the vastness of the world, the beauty of all things, and just how infuriating Xie Zhao could be. It felt like I was truly living for the first time. Xie Zhao wasn't as idle as he appeared. At the very least, his shadow guards were as elusive as ghosts, ensuring he always knew the capital's movements. He never avoided me. Today, when his shadow guards found us, we were drifting on a lake. Xie Zhao and I had been traveling south for several days, carrying only light luggage. The reason? A sudden whim of his to savor the drunken shrimp and crab of Suzhou and Hangzhou. A small boat carried us both. He had a book covering his face, sleeping with his head resting on my lap. His ink-black hair flowed like water, giving him an especially youthful air. The shadow guard looked at me, hesitating slightly. Xie Zhao awoke and spoke in a calm voice, "Speak." The guard indeed brought earth-shattering news. While we were away, the capital had been thrown into turmoil. A petition had bypassed layers of bureaucracy to reach the emperor's eyes, revealing that public funds meant to aid flood victims in Jinan had never reached their destination. Pulling one thread unraveled the whole web. The case of the chancellor embezzling 10,000 taels of gold had been exposed. The corruption scandal implicated a large number of officials, with even traces of the crown prince's involvement. The emperor, who had always praised the chancellor for his integrity and honesty, was now utterly humiliated and enraged. He immediately ordered the chancellor and the implicated officials imprisoned in the heavenly dungeon, with their estates to be confiscated and their heads to be cut off at a later date. The crown prince was placed under complete house arrest, his position in the eastern palace hanging by a thread. My head buzzed, and I was stunned. Such lightning-fast, ruthless action, I couldn't fathom who else could be behind it. Xia Zhao lifted the book covering his face, his gaze unusually clear. He said, "Send word to His Majesty, the princess consort cares deeply for the people. I have taken her with me to Suzhou to aid the disaster relief." The secret guard bowed in acknowledgement and vanished instantly. I lowered my gaze as soft sunlight filtered down, half his face shrouded in shadow. Xia Zhao watched me quietly, my reflection mirrored in his amber eyes. "Everything is under your control," I murmured bitterly. That petition, without someone's guidance, how could it have reached the emperor so smoothly? Even our journey was not what it seemed. He had long anticipated we would go for disaster relief. I asked, Could you have told me beforehand? Even without favor, even with life's hardships, I grew up sheltered by the chancellor's protection. I watched him build his tower, hosted his banquets, and witnessed his tower collapse. I couldn't help but feel a shared sorrow. That doesn't matter. What matters is that I saw the gleaming, razor-sharp blade, suddenly drawn from its sheath, utterly unexpected. It even made me worry I'd acted too hastily. Because, once the chancellor's affair erupted, Xia Zhao could never turn back. I couldn't help but envision a terrifying possibility, my mind going blank in an instant. I said, "You tell me nothing. Does that mean if you lose your head someday, I won't even know?" My voice trembled uncontrollably. Xia Zhao murmured softly, "You won't." He seemed to try for a joke. "Didn't we agree you could chop off my head?" I couldn't make out his expression. Only a profound sorrow surged forth, enveloping us, poised to pour down at any moment. A single tear rolled from my eye, landing silently on Xia Zhao's face. It was as quiet as a drop, yet it felt like a downpour between us. The path to power is strewn with bones. The young man resting his head on my lap today might be gone forever tomorrow. Never before had I felt so acutely how fleeting human existence truly is. What terrified me most was realizing I was beginning to fear loss once more. Just like that snowy night years ago, when I lost my mother. "What about you? When will I lose you?" A long silence. Xia Zhao called my name softly, as if holding back some emotion. "Aning. I will never hide anything from you again. Don't be afraid." I didn't cry, only felt utterly exhausted. I closed my eyes, leaning against my husband's side. My nostrils filled with that familiar, warm, faintly cool fragrance, and I felt safe. As drowsiness overtook me and my consciousness blurred, I heard Xia Zhao murmur in his sleep. "Aning. I both long for your love and fear you truly love me." In my heart, I silently echoed. "Me too." The next moment, I fell into a deep sleep. Ultimately, that petition was merely the spark. What truly sealed my father's fate were the years of sordid deeds he'd committed right under the emperor's nose. Xia Zhao had merely lifted the tip of the iceberg of his crimes. I had no words, nor did I blame him. Months later, upon returning from disaster relief, the emperor bestowed heavy rewards. The downfall of a large group of officials, led by the chancellor, was no small matter. The emperor was already overwhelmed with troubles. At this moment, Xia Zhao, who usually spent his days gallivanting about, volunteered to help resolve the crisis. The contrast was deeply moving. Moreover, Xia Zhao handled the disaster relief with remarkable skill. With the bureaucracy in turmoil, it was only natural that Xia Zhao accepted the emperor's entrustment to temporarily oversee government affairs. Though termed a temporary arrangement, Xia Zhao's status as a prince meant he effectively held real power. A prince meddling in state affairs was a major taboo, yet Xia Zhao managed to have the emperor personally invite him, while appearing quite reluctant himself. He claimed his princess consort was clingy and couldn't bear to be apart from her husband for even a moment. The emperor asked, which is more important, state affairs and the people, or the princess consort? Before everyone present, Xia Zhao answered sincerely, the princess consort is more important. Hearing this, my vision went dark. The emperor must have wanted to execute me, his demonic consort, right then and there. Today, Xia Zhao left early for court. Before departing, he murmured to me, still half asleep, remember to eat the rose pastries. When I awoke and saw the dazzling array of pastries, I realized Xia Zhao had actually requested the imperial chef who had prepared the exquisite wedding banquet. Well, that was just great. In the emperor's eyes, the Ning princess consort was not only clingy but now also spoiled. I sighed inwardly, though deep down, I was quite pleased. I rose, dressed, and after breakfast, I too left the palace. I went to see Xingjiao. My father's case had implicated the entire household. In his fury, the emperor refused to hear the chancellor's defense. Once he found irrefutable evidence, he could scarcely wait to execute them to appease the people. Xingjiao was implicated as well. Unexpectedly, she said her final wish was to see me one last time. My impression of Xingjiao was rather faint. Looking back, I only remembered her insincere voice calling me sister. But no matter what, she had never looked as wretched as she did now. Early autumn had arrived, and the imperial prison was bitterly cold and damp, the chill piercing to the bone. There wasn't even a proper mat, only dry, tattered straw. Xingjiao curled up on it, her small face deathly pale, streaked with tear tracks that had dried and re-wet countless times. When had she ever endured such suffering? I felt only sorrow. The man had feelings, but no heart. The crown prince who defied the imperial decree to annul her betrothal was the same man who now ignored her plight. A woman's fate is like a floating duckweed, who says mine is any different? I dismissed the jailers. Xingjiao suddenly lifted her head. Inside and outside the iron cell, only the two of us remained. I said, "What do you wish to say to me?" She gave no reply, but staggered to her feet, her gaze almost ravenously tracing me from head to toe. It then fixed on the jade hairpin I'd deliberately worn. Xingjiao let out a hoarse laugh. "Xingning, I truly hate you to death." I retorted, "You stole my betrothal and ruined my reputation. We're even." Xingjiao laughed until tears streamed down her face, roaring, "And you, Xingning? Didn't you murder my younger brother and destroy my family? Look at me now! Look at me!" I crouched down and grabbed her face through the iron bars. I said, "Sister, get this straight. Your mother killed mine first, that's why I sought revenge. Last time you framed me, if not for Xia Zhao, I'd have been beaten to death. As for your family, your estate, none of my damn business." I flung my hand away, sending her tumbling to the floor. She wept and laughed, murmuring softly, "You, Xingning, average looks, dull and insipid, cold-hearted and emotionless. Yet because you're the legitimate daughter, you secured the crown prince's betrothal. Later, even Prince Ning sought your hand. You've lived such a blessed life. But I, a mere concubine's daughter, walked on thin ice, bending over backwards to please, every step fraught with dread. After finally climbing to this position, disaster struck. Xia Fan discarded me like a worn-out shoe, desperate to distance himself. Xingning, what gives you the right? What gives you the right?" Her voice was low, each word dripping with hatred seeping from her very bones. "Xingning, you're lucky. So very lucky. Without that luck, you'd be nothing." I replied calmly, "Better to have it than not." Hearing her call me cold-hearted only made me feel gratified. I rose, lowering my gaze to meet hers. "If this was all you wanted to say, then I'll be leaving." She tilted her head, studying me with a look of sudden realization. A strange curve lifted the corners of her mouth. I almost forgot the main event. My heart skipped a beat for no apparent reason. Xingjiao's voice turned sweet. "Xingning, I'm not afraid of death. When I die, you'll all be joining me soon enough." Her eyes shone with an alarming intensity, her cheeks flushed with an unnatural blush, as if she were already savoring the sweetness of revenge. I shot to my feet and turned to leave. She let me go, her low voice echoing faintly in the confined space. "Oh my. You probably don't know, do you? Your esteemed prince, your perfect match, she drew out the syllables, is nothing but a damned short-lived ghost. I turned slowly, meeting her eyes, which shimmered with light. What? Qin Jiao had overheard the crown prince and the chancellor's conversation. Having navigated the treacherous waters of officialdom for years, the chancellor possessed keen intuition. He cautioned Xia Fan to be wary of Prince Ning. Xia Fan, however, laughed drunkenly. Impossible. Before his birthday next year, Prince Ning will surely pass away. The chancellor need not worry. I hurried a few steps and crouched by the prison door. Qin Jiao drew near, pressing so close that if not for the iron bars separating us, our faces would have touched. She whispered venomously into my ear, "Do you know he's been poisoned? Do you know he's going to die? Do you know who poisoned him?" Oh my, she gasped, strangely excited. If I tell the emperor, tell everyone, once Prince Ning dies, won't they suspect you? No, they won't. He absolutely won't suspect me. The doubt that had lingered in my heart for so long was finally resolved. The bloody truth almost spread before my eyes. I froze instantly, stiff with cold, trembling uncontrollably. Qin Jiao, you're so naive. Unaware, Qin Jiao beamed with delight. Seeing how close you two are makes me so happy. I stared at her smug, foolish face, never feeling so coldly composed. She was too close. Xia Zhao found me in the study. It was late afternoon now. News must have spread outside. Qin Jiao had hanged herself in prison. I didn't know how the emperor would react, but he'd likely assume she couldn't bear the humiliation. Xia Zhao would also receive the report from the secret guards. He was so intelligent, he must have understood everything. After returning from the imperial dungeon, I ignored everyone and locked myself in Xia Zhao's study. Though he'd let me do as I pleased in the Prince Ning's mansion on our wedding night, I'd never even set foot in his study. Since childhood, I'd walked on eggshells, guarding my words and actions, maintaining a stark distance. Even as the closest of spouses, I dared not open my heart. So, though I knew Xia Zhao's ambition lay bare, though I knew his heart was devoted to me, I closed my eyes and ears. I refused to take the initiative, refused to seek his favor, refused even to understand his past. As if not hearing meant it didn't exist, as if denial would keep me safe. My mother's dying words, "Men have affection but no heart," became a warning engraved upon my soul. Only now, with a dagger thrust into my chest, have I awakened. I came to verify my suspicions. I searched every corner of the study and found a thin scrap of paper in an extremely hidden compartment. Dense, tiny characters transcribed a poison, 12 sounds. Colorless and odorless, it strikes once each year on one's birthday, inflicting unbearable agony. 12 such attacks guarantee death. Its catalyst requires a single drop of blood from a blood relative. What defines a blood relative? One's birth parents, one's siblings. Those whose veins do not carry the same blood are not considered kin. At this moment, it has been precisely 12 years since the emperor ascended the throne. Thus, all my long-held doubts find their explanation. Why would Prince Xia Zhao, a noble prince, go to such lengths to seize power? Why did the emperor show him no suspicion, instead showering him with indulgent favor? It was guilt. Guilt for personally poisoning his own blood brother, knowing he had little time left to live. I scoured every historical record. Only then did I realize how little I truly understood Xia Zhao. The Xia Zhao I knew was capricious, mischievous, and perpetually out of line, often driving me to tears. Yet, in his younger years, he composed poetry with every 5 steps, a brilliant prodigy of innate genius. The late emperor praised him lavishly, cherishing him beyond measure. Later, when the late emperor passed unexpectedly, the imperial princes vied for power. Xia Zhao single-handedly supported his elder brother, Xia Ji, now the current emperor. Ultimately, Xia Ji ascended the throne. This outcome surprised everyone. For Xia Ji possessed mediocre talent. Given Xia Zhao's brilliance, he was truly the most qualified claimant to the throne. Turning a few more pages, that brilliantly intelligent, pure youth gradually faded from the text. In his place emerged the dissolute Prince Ning, a hedonist indulging in music and women. A tree that stands out in the forest is sure to be struck by the wind. I could almost picture the circumstances then. Xie Zhao could fight for power on behalf of his mediocre brother, then relinquish the throne without hesitation. It simply didn't matter to him. But what of Xie Zhi? You acknowledged your brother's extraordinary talent, yet envied his carefree spirit. You knew your own virtue was unworthy of the throne, yet you feared one possibility above all. What if he doesn't want it now, but what if he desires it in the future? Did it keep you awake night after night, unable to eat or sleep? So you took matters into your own hands, strangling every possible future for him. Do you regret it, Xie Zhi? You knew better than anyone his dazzling brilliance, his free-spirited nature, his deep loyalty and righteousness. He made you what you are, and you destroyed him. You regret it more than anyone, and you are more hateful than anyone. I can't help but recall how Xie Zhao never liked staying in the royal mansion, finding its old-fashioned rules stifling and soul-crushing. So we often traveled together. Through thick clouds and thin mist, past snow-capped pines and verdant mountains, we walked through bustling crowds, listened to storytellers and opera singers, witnessed the first streak of dawn breaking over the waves, and poured the last drop of wine down our throats. Countless days and nights before, we nestled close together. Like the most ordinary common folk, the most unremarkable of couples. He said, "This is good." Xie Zhao had clearly resolved long ago to seize power and usurp the throne, yet he still found leisure to, with playful banter, pluck me from the chancellor's mansion doomed to annihilation. Just as when we first met, I'd just been abandoned by my betrothed, my heart heavy as I looked up, only to be struck by a blazing crimson. Back then, he wore nothing but a mischievous grin. A single tear finally fell, heavy, staining a large patch of the page. "Xie Zhao, you said you'd hide nothing from me anymore, yet you never mentioned these things." I reached out to touch the words on the page, as if I could grasp his youthful shadow. I curled myself tightly, shrinking into a tiny ball. "Mother, you said love is but an illusion, yet why does the pain feel so real?" I slept on the beauty couch, wrapped tightly in a blanket. After Xie Zhao returned to the mansion, it took him quite some effort to find me. He scooped me up, blanket and all. After a moment's thought, he lay down on the daybed himself, tucking me close against his chest. I awoke in his embrace. He idly played with my hair, his peach blossom eyes like cups brimming with wine, rippling with light. I pushed myself up with all my strength and pressed my lips firmly against Xie Zhao's. Caught off guard by my boldness, he froze momentarily. I seized the moment, kneeling upright, one hand pressing his shoulder, the other lifting his chin. Dominating him, I deepened the kiss. Within a second, he surrendered all control. He tilted his head back, yielding to my every demand, until I collapsed exhausted against him. Before I could speak, he took my hand and asked, "Does it hurt?" My eyes flushed crimson in an instant. These very hands had strangled Xingjiao to death. In the imperial dungeon, Xingjiao, momentarily triumphant, declared she would spread the news of Prince Ning's poisoning to everyone. Her careless words, however, fell into my ears with intent. The poisoning of Prince Ning was an imperial secret, forbidden to be known by anyone. Especially forbidden to be known by Xie Zhao himself. For only when Xie Zhao remained utterly unaware could Xie Zhi feel secure enough to lavish compensation, indulgence, and affection upon his own brother, whose days were numbered. The moment even a whisper reached the emperor's ears, Xie Zhi's first thought would be, has Xie Zhao also heard? Does Xie Zhao know his own untimely demise is imminent? Worse still, does he know his own brother administered the poison? Then Xie Zhao would be finished. The emperor's guilt and remorse would instantly turn sour, replaced by suspicion, dread, terror, and humiliating rage. A man who prided himself on his noble character could never accept his own ugliness and baseness. He would personally silence the witness, and I would suffer the consequences. In a flash, I grasped the entire situation. Before me, Xingjiao smiled blissfully, innocent and pitifully adorable, unaware she was already marked for death. And she had come far too close, just to savor my collapse. I hesitated only an instant before striking suddenly, my fingers tightening around her fragile throat. Only the dead cannot speak. Xie Zhao massaged my hand, speaking slowly. Xingjiao, attempting to escape prison, panicked and fell from the high wall, striking her head on a rock and dying. My eyes widened. Without a trace of humor, he curved his lips, placing my hand against his mouth and kissing it lightly. She upset my consort so terribly. And with that casual remark, he disposed of the body for me. Yet Xia Zhao's next words sent a chill through me. She must have said something else, trying to drive a wedge between us. I lowered my gaze to my husband. He was too sharp. Xing Jiao had indeed spoken. She said, "Who do you think you are? That the prince holds you in such high regard? He married you because your heart's blood is the antidote that keeps him alive. Your presence beside him is like a pig beside the butcher." Xia Zhao sensed my shock, his hand tightening as it stroked my back, as if smoothing out my jumbled thoughts. He chuckled softly, "Too bad she doesn't know my wife trusts no one." My entire body froze instantly. He held me close, his faint, cool scent enveloping me in tenderness. Our posture was undeniably intimate, yet his words sent a chill through me, even to my fingertips. The next moment, he sensed it. His warm palm tightened silently around mine, kneading it gently. "There's no rush," he said. "Let's talk about Xingjiao first." I was in the palace when I received the news. I heard Xia Fan flew into a terrible rage, demanding a thorough investigation. I frowned. Why would Xia Fan be furious? He doesn't even love Xingjiao. So it must be. Xingjiao is of great use to him. A sudden realization struck me, and I gasped, "Ah." Xia Zhao turned his head to look at me and said, "The princess consort would never act so urgently unless absolutely necessary, and she even allowed me to handle the aftermath. Unless she possesses a deadly secret about me, then it can only be the poison in my body." Hearing him mention it so casually, my throat tightened. He nonchalantly pulled me into his embrace and continued, "I suspect Xingjiao stumbled upon this information by accident." Xia Fan decided to play along, feeding her a bunch of false intelligence, hoping she'd spread rumors at the right moment. Like how I covet the throne. Or that I married you for ulterior motives. Before I could respond, he grew serious. "Though I know you'd never believe slander, I must swear before heaven and earth, before our ancestors, I, Xia Zhao, swear by all that is sacred, I covet nothing but you." I laughed and cried at the same time, pushing him away before continuing. Yet the crown prince never anticipated the chancellor's case erupting, Xingjiao being imprisoned, and him being placed under house arrest. That in itself wasn't significant, merely a minor inconvenience. But he never imagined Xingjiao would seek me out, intending to use these events to humiliate me. Xia Zhao smiled faintly. He never imagined my consort would be so ruthless. I shook my head. "The ruthless one is you," I said. The timing of the chancellor's case was too convenient. And the emperor's attitude was suspicious too. Why wouldn't he even hear the chancellor's defense? I said, "The emperor seems more like discarding the bow once the birds are caught." Xia Zhao stared intently at me, the silence becoming almost frightening. After a long moment, he began clapping, one clap after another. "Clap! Clap! Clap!" he said with pride, "My little girl, you're sharp. Want to know why?" Xia Zhao replied casually, "Because the poisoning incident back then was plotted by the emperor and the chancellor together." That's exactly it. With the corruption scandal erupting, the chancellor's residence would inevitably be thoroughly investigated. The chancellor had always been the most prominent figure among the crown prince's faction. The crown prince was arrogant and self-indulgent, growing increasingly brazen lately, his lust for the throne practically written across his face. But the emperor was still in his prime, far from abdicating, and Xia Fan was his only son with even a shred of potential. This called for a severe lesson. Besides, the chancellor's residence was my maternal home. With Xia Zhao doting on me like this, he might just step in to protect me. What if Xia Zhao uncovered the faint traces of the past? How would the emperor extricate himself then? Fearing Xia Zhao's involvement in this major case, Xia Zhi resolved to eliminate all traces at once. Who could have imagined that the very blade Xia Zhao handed over would be the one to finish him? Thus, some were silenced, some falsely accused, and others purged. Caught off guard and confined to the Eastern Palace, he orchestrated everything from afar, then strolled in as if arriving by boat. What Xia Fan likely hated most was that Xingjiao had been a brilliant hidden pawn, a mere tweak could have toppled Xia Zhao. Yet he never imagined she'd fall into my hands. Finally piecing together the entire sequence of events, looking back now, it all felt utterly breathtaking. A single misstep in any move would have doomed the entire game. My lady. My heart skipped a beat, knowing he'd finally come to deal with me. I tried to rise but was pressed back down by him, our noses pressed together in awkward proximity. Xia Zhao's voice was icy. At our wedding, I asked you why you didn't trust me to protect you. How long did I wait for this meager trust from you? And even that was only to help us clean up the mess. Sometimes I wish you'd lean on me a little more. I forced a dry laugh. Just protecting myself. Xia Zhao fell silent for a moment before abruptly stating, I can't find the antidote. What? What? I exclaimed. Xia Zhao's tone remained flat as he stated the facts. Ever since discovering I'd been poisoned, I've sought out renowned physicians across the land. All declared there was no cure. Yet these past years, I overheard a secret within the palace. For every poison, there is an antidote, they exist in tandem. Back then, the emperor wavered. Fearing he might change his mind, the chancellor secretly hid the antidote. That's why the chancellor must die. But I've searched every corner of the chancellor's residence, no trace of the antidote. I swallowed hard, anger surging. You never told me any of this. Xia Zhao, you've been hiding things from me again. Before I could erupt, Xia Zhao tugged at my sleeve, pleading like a child, my lady, don't be angry. Please don't be angry. My breath caught in my throat, unable to rise or fall. I could only glare at him fiercely. Yet my heart felt as if drenched in lemon juice, swelling with bittersweet ache. The shadow of death had clearly always hung over Xia Zhao, yet I knew nothing of it, hidden away in his embrace. I'd thought life was peaceful and happy, that closing my eyes meant forever. Xia Zhao said, but though I am a dying man, protecting you is more than enough for me. You are good, clever, decisive, so reassuring to me. Day by day, the more I see you, the more I cherish you, the more I worry. How I wish you could be an ordinary woman. Before meeting me, you wouldn't have to scheme against others, or even hide a dagger under your pillow. After meeting me, you wouldn't need to understand court intrigues, wouldn't have to grasp grudges and enmities, wouldn't have to kill with your own hands, and certainly wouldn't have to live in constant dread, tormented by the royal family's dirty secrets. I have the power to shield you from the world even after I'm gone. My nose stung, and I hurriedly covered his mouth with my hand. Don't say such things. It's unlucky. He persisted, Ninger, what should I do? Tell me. Xia Zhao chose his words carefully, his tone sincere and earnest. What must I do to ease your worries? I've never feared snakes, insects, or rodents, nor the supernatural beings from plays, ghosts, demons, and spirits. But what terrifies me most is surrendering myself completely. To place my panic and helplessness, my timidity and fragility, my selfishness and softness, to place my trembling, beating heart and my inarticulate, obscure emotions, into someone else's hands. I held it in for so long, I finally forced out a laugh, one that might have been uglier than crying. I said, let me hold on to you. Keep you forever in the palm of my hand, so I'll never lose you. If I'm in the mood, I'll be nice to you, if I'm not, I'll kill you. Even I found my own words laughable. I hastily wiped the corners of my eyes and said, just kidding, don't take it seriously. But Xia Zhao stared intently into my eyes. He said, fine. 28. After that night, Xia Zhao continued to tease and joke with me as always, still managing to infuriate me to the point of headaches. The matter with Xingjiao was merely a small ripple, fleeting and soon forgotten. Her death was only the beginning of the downfall of the Chancellor's household. After enduring the lengthy interrogation process, they were all ultimately led to the execution ground. I did not go to witness it. I dressed meticulously, my hair adorned with a cascading hairpin, my steps adorned with tassels, and a finely carved jade Buddha pendant hanging from my neck. I went alone to my mother's grave and knelt in prayer for a long time. I needed to confirm one thing. If it was as I suspected, then the key to breaking the stalemate lay in my hands. I reached up and pulled a small jade pendant from around my neck. Xia Zhao's claim that no antidote could be found in the Chancellor's residence had struck a chord. If the Chancellor truly had stolen the antidote, he would have either destroyed it completely or hidden it carefully. Destruction seemed unlikely. My father was a man of many tricks, never leaving himself without a backup plan. But what if it had simply been lost? As Mother lay dying, she drew me close and whispered softly in my ear, "Men cannot be relied upon. In all matters, you must depend only on yourself." Using her body as cover, she slipped a pendant into my hand before passing away. A small jade Buddha pendant, exquisitely carved, yet its water and color were poor. I couldn't fathom my mother's intent, but I kept the pendant close to my skin. No one knew of it, and I myself nearly forgot it existed. Now, looking back, it seems rather peculiar. Mother's illness had lingered for years. Why wait until her final breath to entrust me with her jewelry? Did she want me to learn to fend for myself? Or was she planning something herself? Standing before Mother's grave, I clutched the tiny pendant in my hand. A howling wind swept by, rustling the wild grasses at the grave's edge. Listening intently, I thought I could hear the mournful wails from the execution ground 100 miles away, the final lament of the Shing family's complete demise. All that vast splendor and opulence ultimately vanished like smoke. Mother, Mother, watch over me. Amidst the desolate landscape and the faint crimson before my eyes, I hurled it with all my might. The jade Buddha shattered upon impact. Several more months of peaceful days passed. The Emperor welcomed a new son. As soon as this child was born, extraordinary celestial phenomena appeared. The Imperial Astronomical Bureau observed the night sky and declared him born extraordinary, possessing great talent. A purple star descended from heaven. The Emperor rejoiced, and the palace was filled with joy. Only the Eastern Palace remained unsettled. Xie Fan's house arrest ended, but everyone could see the Emperor's attitude toward him growing increasingly cold. Rumors even began to circulate that the Emperor was considering appointing the young prince. Whether the rumors were true or false, I did not know. I only knew Xie Zhao deliberately spread them. Evidently, it worked. Xie Fan looked like he was about to explode with rage. After my birthday, and then the new year, came Xie Zhao's birthday. The Emperor had been inquiring about Xie Zhao's health far more frequently lately, showering him with countless gifts. He seemed eager to move every treasure in the palace to the Ning prince's mansion. He even found an opportunity to bestow honors upon me. Xie Zhao accepted them with composure. I remarked that with the atmosphere so heavily set, it would be awkward if Xie Zhao didn't die now. Upon hearing this, Xie Zhao immediately grabbed a quilt and decided to sleep in separate rooms. I watched coldly. Sure enough, Xie Zhao snuck back in the middle of the night, acting as if nothing had happened, and with a clear conscience, drove me half to death. The new year arrived in a flash. The first firework burst open, followed by a cascade of brilliant streaks across the sky. Immediately after, a continuous roar of firecrackers erupted, a relentless, fiery celebration. We raised our cups to each other, our eyes soft and warm, toasting the new year. Xie Zhao smiled gently, saying, "May every year bring a day like this." I nodded softly. The time was approaching. Amidst the festive streets, a rider spurred his horse through the snowstorm, bursting into the Prince Ning's residence. A shrill, wailing cry pierced the air, "The Emperor has been assassinated." Xie Zhao and I exchanged knowing glances. I smiled. Go. It's time to wrap things up. During the New Year celebrations, Prince Ning entered the palace under cover of night. What followed felt like a dream. The Emperor lay gravely wounded. Xie Zhao assumed regency, openly sidelining the crown prince and placing the Eastern Palace under house arrest. Within a month, cut off from all outside news, the crown prince could no longer contain himself. Wielding the imperial token, he led his troops to storm the palace and seize the throne. The young, handsome regent leaned back in his high seat. The throne beside him stood empty, his expression almost cold. A thunderous, bone-chilling crash echoed through the hall. The crown prince turned to see his entire army kneeling in unison. The emperor, who should have been mortally wounded, stood trembling at the palace entrance, his eyes bulging with fury. A deathly silence hung heavy within the hall. After a moment, Xie Fan burst into a raucous, skyward laugh. His voice rasped, "Xie Zhao. What a masterstroke! Xia Zhao descended the steps, silent, and personally assisted the emperor onto the throne. Xia Fan stood rigid, eyes bloodshot, enunciating each word with deliberate force. It was you. You had others instigate me, deceiving me that my father's days were numbered. You lied that a deathbed decree had been issued, that the emperor intended to depose me and install the young prince. You urged me to fight for myself. It was you, laying traps for me from the very beginning. Xia Fan wept and shouted, pointing at Xia Zhao, "Father. It's all him, all him. Open your eyes and see. Who truly harbors wolfish ambitions?" The emperor didn't want to say a word, merely waving his hand. Guards immediately pinned the crown prince to the ground. Xia Zhao tilted his head, his gaze filled with confusion and pity. His profile bore an uncanny resemblance to the emperor's. "Nephew," he said, "what are you talking about?" Somehow, this provoked Xia Fan into violent struggle. His hair flew wildly as he made a desperate last stand. "Father. He's been by your side all this time just to seek revenge. He knew all along that you were the one." Xia Zhao struck him cleanly across the head with a backhand chop, knocking him unconscious. "Take him away," he ordered coldly. "Nonsense." The emperor abruptly rose, his voice thunderous with fury. Still wounded, the sudden surge of anger overwhelmed him. He swayed, gasped, and sank back into his seat. Xia Zhao dismissed all eunuchs and guards, ordering them to summon the imperial physician. In the vast palace, only the two brothers remained. 31. Xia Zhao stared at Xia Zhi's ashen face, saying nothing. What else could the emperor not understand? He said bitterly, "You know everything." Xia Zhao stood with head bowed, slowly approaching Xia Zhi's side. After a long pause, the emperor seemed to be stirred by endless emotions. "They say royalty is heartless," he said. "Xia Fan is like that, and so am I. Now I lie gravely wounded, Xia Fan forces the throne, and I have no worthy heir. Even you. Your birthday approaches. Xia Zhao, is this retribution?" A cold smile slowly spread across Xia Zhao's lips. Everyone understood, had it not been for these events, the emperor's assassination attempt, the crown prince's coup, the waning imperial power, Xia Zhi would never have regretted his choices so deeply, given a ruler's cold-hearted nature. Xia Zhao leaned close, whispering into Xia Zhi's ear for the first time since ascending the throne, addressing his brother by name. "Xia Zhi, this palace has always been my shackle, a cage from which I cannot escape. You are my own flesh and blood. I have always revered and honored you. I even believed that after you ascended the throne, I might gain a measure of freedom. Yet I never imagined." His tone turned mocking and light. "This throne, I never wanted it. Not before, and certainly not now." Xia Zhi's face grew paler by the moment. Xia Zhao continued, "My birthday is but a dozen days hence. Then I shall depart." He added maliciously, "I refuse even to die here." Though Xia Zhi was still in the prime of his life, he seemed to have aged 10 years in that instant. The brothers had finally reached the point of irreconcilable enmity. In just over a dozen days, they would be separated by life and death. And he wouldn't even grant his elder brother a final farewell. Xia Zhi's face twisted with pain as he nodded slowly. "For everything that happened before, I'm the one who wronged you." Xia Zhao said, "That apology is all I ever wanted to hear." He turned and walked away, without a single glance back. "But I won't forgive you." Xia Zhi sat alone upon the throne, watching as the imperial physician hurried past, brushing shoulders with Xia Zhao. Though seated at the pinnacle of power, an overwhelming sense of desolate loneliness suddenly engulfed him. Once, brothers played together at their parents' feet. Once, their bond was deep and warm, yet he had extinguished it with his own hands. The harmonious scenes of laughter and joy in his memories were ultimately swallowed by the vastness of time. As Xia Zhao reached the palace gates, he suddenly turned back. Xia Zhi paused, a flicker of light in his eyes. Xia Zhao cupped his hand to his mouth and called out from afar, "Oh, right. I'm taking my consort with me." Xia Zhi. Still uneasy, Xia Zhao bellowed, "How could she possibly live without me? Have mercy, Xia Zhi." He was so enraged he couldn't speak, finally forcing out a single word after a long pause. "Go. Go, go, go." Having received permission, Xia Zhao seemed to chuckle. The palace gates slowly closed. His back was straight as an arrow. I bit down on the sugar-coated hawthorn on my hand, unable to bear listening any longer. I mumbled, "What nonsense are you talking about? I can live just fine without you." And then? Xia Zhao gently pinched my nose, sighing. Then the Ning prince's mansion was engulfed in flames. The prince and princess perished in the inferno. The emperor granted them a grand funeral. All the farce concluded, ultimately staging a grand spectacle. Back to that day. I smashed the jade Buddha, and among the shards, I found what I needed. The prescription. No wonder the quality was so poor. At last, I held in my hands the leverage to secure a stable future. I was so afraid. The night mother died, her thin coffin was lowered into the earth, carving a gaping hole in my heart. The bitter wind whistled through it, chilling my very soul. The disparity between women and men was too vast. Once a woman loses favor, she becomes a prisoner within the inner quarters, doomed to a life of drudgery. Yet for a man to betray her? It's as easy as turning his hand. I've seen the strife within the inner quarters, witnessed fickleness firsthand, yet I can never grow accustomed to it. I refuse to be cast aside, controlled, or left to die. I refuse to stake my very existence on one man. A shattered sense of security and a near-twisted craving for control shaped me. On our wedding night, I said I would kill Xia Zhao. It was self-preservation. Later, when passion burned brightest, gazing at Xia Zhao's face, my heart overflowed with inexpressible affection and an endless torrent of venom. I thought, he should die when he loves me most. For then, love becomes eternal. I wanted to draw near him, possess him, elevate him, and destroy him. I am ruthless. That New Year's Eve, I presented Xia Zhao with 2 vials of medicine. I told him there were 2 antidotes, one quick, one slow. The quick method neutralized the poison with a single pill, yet residual toxins remained, inevitably shortening his life by 20 years. The slow method required human blood as an ingredient, 1 dose per year, with death following cessation. But this blood had its own origins. The 12-tone poison required a brother's genuine malice to activate, while its antidote demanded someone's genuine desire to save him. Genuine feelings, the most unreliable thing in this world. Xia Zhao stared at the medicine, suddenly bursting into uncontrollable laughter. I glared at him, feeling inexplicably flustered. Then, without a word, he snatched the slow antidote from my hand with lightning speed and swallowed it whole. Stunned, I tossed the vial aside and grabbed his throat. "What are you doing?" Xia Zhao pinned me down, swallowing the pill with effort. Looking somewhat smug, he opened his mouth to show me. I ate it. His reaction was completely unexpected. I was utterly dumbfounded. Grabbing his collar, I hoisted him up, ignoring Xia Zhao's grumbling of tiger, tiger, and snapped, "I told you slow-acting drugs mean death if interrupted." How reckless, what if? Xia Zhao spoke softly, "Would you really let someone else control my life?" I choked. It was true I'd made the medicine with my own blood. But, I said, what if I changed my mind? What if I stopped loving you? What if I hated you and wanted you dead? Xia Zhao smiled. Then I'd have to keep a close eye on you. Treat you well. Better and better. Make sure you always loved me. His smile was mischievous, just like when he first asked for my hand in marriage. I couldn't believe it. You're still smiling. What if I died? Xia Zhao replied, "What's so frightening about binding our lives together?" He said it as if it were the most natural thing in the world. I stared at him blankly. Xia Zhao crouched down, his sleeve brushing my face. He wiped away a tear that had rolled down my cheek without my knowing. Xia Zhao chuckled softly, "I knew all along you'd be an untamable white-eyed wolf." I remained motionless, staring intently at his face. His expression softened as he asked, "And now?" I looked at him blankly. He gazed back at me, his eyes and brows brimming with tenderness. "Have you caught me?" Xia Zhao had asked me earlier what he could do to ease my fears. I told him, "You have to let me catch you. If I'm unhappy, I'll kill you." He said, "Fine." And now, through his actions, he was telling me, "I'll give you everything." I finally cried without restraint. The wind died down. Xia Zhao said, I'm curious, if you'd chosen the fast-acting poison, what would you have done? Buried in his embrace, I choked out earnestly, there was no fast-acting poison. If you'd chosen it, I'd have destroyed the antidote immediately and waited to bury you. Xia Zhao. Xia Zhao wouldn't let it go. What would you do if I died? I sniffed and admitted honestly, I'd transfer all your assets into my name. Xia Zhao. I said sheepishly, if you died, I'd have no choice but to become a landlady in sorrow. Xia Zhao ground out a few words between clenched teeth, seems my being alive really holds you back. I gave him a simple, genuine smile. I thought, actually, it's quite nice that you're alive. We can tease each other, torment each other, bicker and squabble, and before we know it, we'll grow old together. These thoughts, I'd never tell him. By now, a month had passed. The crown prince was demoted to commoner status. The emperor had recovered from his wounds. Prince Ning vanished without a trace. Prince Ning was no longer Prince Ning. He was simply my Xia Zhao, my husband. And he had celebrated a smooth, happy birthday. The decades ahead promised nothing but good days. I asked, will Xia Zhi realize he's been deceived? Xia Zhao scoffed. I've been kind to him. I only pretended to be gravely wounded, as if. A few days rest and I was fine. The nation couldn't go a single day without its ruler, after all. I asked, but what if Xia Zhi catches on later and discovers you're not dead? What if he comes looking for you? Xia Zhao shrugged. I left a letter. It says I poisoned him while he was unconscious from his injuries, and only my blood can serve as the catalyst for the antidote. As long as he doesn't come looking for me, I'll send him the medicine every year. If he does come looking, I'll hang myself. We'll all die together. Let's see if he dares. I smiled. Such a familiar poison. 12 tones, death and rebirth. Who knows if there are still 12 tones in this world? In any case, everything is settled now. We finally left that land of wealth that devours its people, like two fish gliding swiftly and smoothly into the vast ocean of the mortal world, hiding beneath its waters forever. Before us, fiery dawn pierced the sky's canopy. Surging waves crashed against the shore. Sea breeze caressed our cheeks as a bird streaked across the sky. Gazing into the distance, mountains stretched endlessly, the frontier line vanishing beyond sight. I breathed in the scent of freedom. Xia Zhao leaned down, pressing a gentle kiss to my forehead. It was a grand moment under heaven. Through the ages, galloping across rivers and mountains. Grievances, greed, anger, and delusion fade away, sharing each dawn across the vast world. Amidst the snowstorms of days gone by, one person promised me a lifetime of freedom. From then on, we grew old together in Chang'an. The end.